I've been coming to the Global Media Forum for many years now, and this is hands down my favorite part. But before we continue, I want to borrow a leaf from Liz this morning. She asked you all to participate in a small exercise, and I'd like you to do the same. But first, I'd like to know from Christian if it's okay for me to proceed by the volume of the music. Well, music out loud, journalism out loud.
So he says it's okay, you can proceed.
Okay, we can proceed. Thank you, Christian.
Turning down the volume, hopefully yes.
Yes, all right. So, raise your hand if you here are a journalist or know one. Please raise your hand if you're a journalist or if you know a journalist. Wonderful. I know, it sounds like a stupid question. Keep them up, please, if the said journalist that you're thinking about has been harassed or detained. Incredible. Now keep those hands up if that person has been detained in solitary confinement for a period of up to 5 years. So look around this room. Please keep your hands up. Look around this room. Those hands are exactly why the DW Freedom of Speech Award exists. Thank you. Since 2015, the Freedom of Speech Award has gone to those who simply refused to back down. It's gone to people like Raif Badawi. He was jailed in Saudi Arabia for the crime of writing. It went to Tobore Ovuorie, who went undercover in a daring undertaking to uncover human trafficking in Nigeria, or to Yulia Navalny, who needs little introduction and who is still going despite the fact that the Kremlin have tried to take everything from her. Well, this year, the person who's receiving this award is cut from the same cloth. It's a man who's built Hong Kong's most fearless newsroom. It's a man who has pushed for democracy and really paid for it dearly. And it's a man who perhaps most incredibly chose to stay, even when leaving could have saved him. Participants, Jimmy Lai is 79 years old. He's been in solitary confinement for more than 5 years. It's making me emotional saying this because I can't imagine it. And he's still continuing to serve a 20-year sentence, so obviously he can't be here. But we're representing him in this room. And this award, I hope, stands for him and is proof that truly, as V in V for Vendetta said, that ideas are bulletproof. I hope wherever he is, he knows that what he stood for cannot be locked away with him. And so I'd like to introduce our first speaker, but before that, because Jimmy Lai is many things, more than a convict, he's also this.
This year's DW Freedom of Speech Award honors Jimmy Lai, publisher, journalist, and pro-democracy advocate. For decades, he has stood for free speech and press freedom in Hong Kong. As founder of the newspaper Apple Daily, he gave a voice to millions.
I have to go on. If I leave, not only I disgrace myself, I discredit Apple Daily and also undermine the solidarity of the democratic movement.
When Beijing imposed the national security law, that voice came under attack. Newsrooms were raided, journalists arrested, independent media shut down. At great personal risk, Jimmy Lai chose to remain on board.
I will sink with the ship because this place gave me everything.
Today, he is behind bars, but his message endures. In the face of repression, he chose conviction over silence. His actions deserve our respect and recognition. Jimmy Lai, laureate of the DW Freedom of Speech Award 2026.
Yeah. what a man. I will sink with the ship. And yet, our next speaker challenged us this morning, saying that as journalists, we are not standing next to our journalists enough. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome on stage Jodie Ginsberg, who is a CEO of CPJ.
As we sit in this room this evening, celebrating the importance of a free press, Jimmy Lai is in prison for defending that same freedom. While we have spoken freely in the defense of independent media, Jimmy, who founded an independent media company because he believed in the rights of the Hong Kong people to receive information, is locked away for those beliefs. Jimmy Lai has none of the freedoms we have enjoyed today. We have been constantly in company in the vast, airy spaces of the World Conference Center. Jimmy spends 23 hours a day in solitary confinement in a cell without air conditioning. No air conditioning in Hong Kong, where temperatures in the summer can reach up to 44 degrees Celsius. While we have walked, and some of us even enjoyed an early morning run, Jimmy is allowed out of his cell for just 50 minutes a day. Unlike other inmates who can exercise in groups, Jimmy walks alone in a 5 by 10 meter enclosure surrounded by barbed wire. He is allowed just 2 30-minute visits from relatives or friends each month. When they do see him, they see a once robust and healthy man whose weight has dropped dramatically, whose teeth are now rotting, and whose nails are falling off. This is the price Jimmy Lai is paying for defending journalism, for founding a newspaper that celebrated the value of democracy. A belief in democracy spurred Jimmy Lai from his earliest years. He arrived in Hong Kong aged 12 as a stowaway on a fishing boat, and after starting as a child laborer at a garment factory, rose to manager, eventually purchasing a company and launching the clothing retail chain Giordano, where he made his fortune. After the 1989 Tiananmen Square massacre, Jimmy launched Next magazine as part of his Next media group, and then launched Apple Daily in 1995, introducing tabloid-style journalism to Hong Kong and later Taiwan. Unashamedly pro-democracy, Apple Daily was frequently targeted by opponents. Its offices and Lai's homes were frequently attacked, including with firebombs. Despite these attacks, Jimmy remained and remains a fierce defender of democracy. First arrested in 2014 for participating in pro-democracy demonstrations, he was arrested again in 2020 after Hong Kong enacted its sweeping national security law. He has been detained ever since, and in February this year was finally sentenced to 20 years in jail under the law, the harshest ever penalty handed down under the legislation. At 78, this sentence is effectively a death sentence. And yet, as we heard from Edith, Jimmy's detention was not inevitable. Jimmy is a man of considerable means. He is a British citizen. He had ample opportunities to leave Hong Kong, and yet he chose to stay. He chose to stay because he believes that the principle of democracy is something that we must fight for, that we must be prepared to defend, if necessary, with our liberty. In his case, perhaps with his life. As we heard in the introductory video, Jimmy pledged to sink with the ship, to choose solidarity over self-preservation, conviction over silence. In rooms like these, where democracy seems a given, in countries where most of us are able to assemble freely, to speak seemingly openly, to exercise our rights to vote, it can feel like the heroism of Jimmy Lai is needed only in countries that feel, in democratic terms, very far from our own. But the sad and terrifying reality is that Jimmy Lai is no longer an outlier. Last year, more than 300 journalists were in jail worldwide for their work. Levels of democracy have sunk to their lowest levels in decades. Nearly 3/4 of the world's population now live under autocratic rule. So Jimmy's fight is not a solo fight. His is a fight that we must all take on. We cannot afford to be complacent. We cannot afford to turn away. We cannot afford to be silent. Attacks on the press are the first indicators of democratic decline. The attacks on Apple Daily and its counterparts in Hong Kong presaged the far greater attacks on civil liberties in the years that followed. Jimmy Lai saw this and spoke out. We can honor him today, not only by fighting for his freedom, but by defending the freedoms for which he was jailed. The test of our principles is not our willingness to defend them in theory, but to do so in practice, to be willing to stand up and speak out when those principles are under attack. And so I ask you now to stand here to honor Jimmy Lai and to continue to take a stand and to speak out at home as you do abroad in defense of a free press. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Please stay here. Thanks so much, Jodie. Please remain on stage because Barbara Mazing will be joining you, our Director General at DW, to help present this award. Please help welcome the Director General of Deutsche Welle to the stage.
Yeah, so thank you so very much. As I mentioned this morning, Claire Lai is here. And I'm so very happy that you are with us and that you are accepting, on behalf of your father, the Freedom of Speech Award 2026 for the work and the life work that he was doing. Thank you so very much.
Because once they're done,
hello. Thank you so much to the DW Global Media Forum, the wonderful Jodie Ginsberg, and the Committee to Protect Journalists, and of course Barbara Mazing for their steadfast support. It's a privilege and pleasure to be accepting this prestigious award on behalf of my father today in the beautiful city of Bonn and in this extraordinary venue. I think I can repeat here what I said not too long ago, that I would be here all night if I thanked everyone I needed to for everything they do for my father. But thank you for the various governments who continue to keep my father's case in their hearts and in their work. Thank you to the teams we have the privilege of working with, like Tatiana, who's here with me today, and the kindnesses that we have been so warmly extended, that have been so warmly extended to us from the Houses of Parliament and the halls of Congress to the people we meet daily. The month of June is quite an eventful month in my mind. It starts on the 4th of June with the anniversary of the Tiananmen Square massacre of 1989. It was a defining moment in my father's life. For him and many in Hong Kong, as they awaited the handover of Hong Kong, it was a political awakening of sorts. Before the horrors of the tanks coming in to crush the people, he was inspired by the protesters who were filled with hope for a better tomorrow. After the horrors of the massacre, he helped others find safety abroad. Thereafter, he wrote a scathing critique of the premier and was forced to sell his clothing companies, at the time one of the largest in Asia, as a result. As it got closer, many in Hong Kong wondered what fate awaited them. Would the promises we made in the treaty signed be kept? Would the freedoms Hong Kong was accustomed to still exist in the tiny cosmopolitan island? Some might call it fear. My father, in his recent testimony from his national security trial, puts it better than I could, of the part that he would play. I thought it was a good idea for somebody like me to participate in delivering freedom, because the more information you have, the more you are in the know, the more you are free. So came the birth of Apple Daily. In its inaugural editorial, the newspaper promised not to cower in fear under pressure. It promised to be a voice for the Hong Kong people, a voice for the promised democratic reform. And it very much was. Besides the insightful opinion pieces and the most vibrant coverage of human rights issues like the annual Tiananmen Square vigils in Victoria Park, it also covered, to name a few, local tragedies such as the 2016 fire in the storage units killing 2 firefighters, its coverage of domestic violence cases, which were credited for bringing greater public awareness to certain systemic issues. It also had a very strong investigative arm, which exposed public misconduct, the misuse of public funds, the illegal black markets, and the handling of COVID. When pressure came, as it always did, whether in the form of firebombs outside the house or the desertion of friends, my father took it in stride because he knew he was doing what was right. Even now, he knows he's a steward of God's gifts and answerable to him for how he uses them. That takes me to the second big chain of events in June, and that is from the 16th to the 24th of June, 2021. This marked the mass arrests of the staff from Apple Daily and the days leading to the very last print. The arrests which took place from the 16th were quite unprecedented. The communist-backed authorities came for everyone, from the executives to the editors to the producers to the writers. Simultaneously, the assets of the companies were prevented from being used. Materials which were traditionally protected as journalistic materials and sources, as they should be, were seized as hundreds of officers stormed the offices. And several of the key corporate entities were criminally charged. That perhaps is why a chill went down every single media worker and organization's spine in the once free Hong Kong. In the time since then, both media organizations and civil society organizations have shut down completely or restructured dramatically due to a coming under increasing debilitating structure. It's true what they say, that the media landscape often reflects the health of a society. Apple Daily has once been described as a conscience of Hong Kong. For a lot of my generation, lining up for a newspaper is not something we remember doing. But on the very last day of printing Apple Daily, people lined up in mass. Hong Kong has a population of about 7.5 million people. On that day alone, 1 million copies were printed. All of them sold, some queuing from the night before. In fact, many complained in the hours that followed about not managing to secure a copy due to arriving too late. And I think that reflects what has long been recognized, that the right to a free press is corollary or concomitant to that of free expression. In order for the latter to be exercised properly, the press must be allowed to seek and impart information and ideas truthfully. In fact, the press has a duty to do so in its role as what has been referred to as the fourth estate. So, as someone who is not a journalist, but just a very ordinary daughter to two extraordinary individuals, but one who benefited from the vibrant marketplace of ideas and information that once existed in Hong Kong, the attacks over the years were attacks not just on media workers or organizations, and not just on my father, although they certainly were that. But they were also attacks on people who benefited, flourished, and sought information and ideas, which were once the foundation of the city I grew up in. On the night before Apple Daily last printed, I went to the offices. People were there who had been working for the organization and saw its ebbs and flows for longer than I had been alive. One remembered meeting me for the first time when my hair was styled like a palm tree or pineapple, and I looked at my dad with stars in my eyes. While I grew out of that hairstyle from the age of 5, the latter never changed. So this brings me to the last sort of event of June, and that's Father's Day, this last Sunday. It's celebrated on the same day in the US, the UK, and in Hong Kong. Early in my father's childhood, due to being born in a well-to-do family, before my father could walk or talk, he and his family were declared the enemy of the people when the communists came to power. His father left in search of better opportunities abroad, and my father, at the age of 8, was sent to work as a porter in train stations. So my father grew up surrounded by cruelty, without a father's guidance, without one to show him how to be a good father or lead a family, and with every reason to be a cynic. But my father was as present for his family and loved ones in times of stability as he was in times of turmoil. A loving man who showed courage and spirit in service of others and the ideal of freedom. One who reflected the virtues and resilience and curiosity, like that I found reading Sir Winston Churchill, or humility and rigor, like Cardinal Ratzinger later put Benedict, or fortitude I found in the works of Joseph Piper. All are books I inherited from my dad's trove of treasures, otherwise known as his library. My father turned 79 this year and suffers from cascading health issues, some pre-existing, some newly developed, but all extremely poorly managed. He has been in prison now for over 5.5 years. For all but 2 of those nights, he has spent them in solitary confinement. The same man who taught me to love running sometimes doesn't have the strength to stand. The man who used to send me recipes to try and would heartily gulp down even my failed attempts is lucky to have a drumstick the size of my thumb. The one who enjoyed morning walks outside and the flowers as the weather changed is stuck in a cell with no access to natural sunlight, let alone outdoor walks or seasonal flowers. Yet, he still approaches everyone with the same decency I try to emulate. It's been almost a year since I've seen him, and yet he still had the crinkles in his eyes when he smiled seeing me when I visited and would kiss me through this plastic screen. He is still every bit as loving. The letters he writes still feel like a warm hug by the fireplace on a cold winter day. Everything good I have in me, I have because of my parents. When I write to him about my daily life, I still ask him, Daddy, what should I do? Daddy, was I wrong? Daddy, I feel lost. I still have so much to learn from the man who is my hero, the one who is my anchor. Daddy, I pray I'll see you soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Claire. Thank you. Thank you all so much.